Welcome back to the Texas Daily. We're talking about this Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 that's been missing now for over a week. Joining us now, because we're all fascinated by what he does and how this fits into the scenario, say hello to pilot David Shuffer. David, thank you for being here. Who'd you fly with, and how long did you fly the 777?
I flew the 777 for 10 years. I did 9 years with American Airlines, and then I retired in '07. And then I flew 1 year with Jet Airways, which is the largest private company in India.
I'm assuming you flew international or not?
All international.
All international. I'm fascinated by what you're thinking right now. Number one is, can you just manually switch off everything they're saying you can switch off on this plane?
On the transponder, it's very easy. You just reach down and turn it to standby.
Right.
And that's basically off.
And that's communication, all communication is gone? Or the transponder is gone?
The transponder just shuts it off. If you want to back it up, you pull a circuit breaker. But you really don't need to pull the circuit breaker. Just turning it to standby turns it off.
Wow.
What do you think? I mean, when you see it and you see all the television reports, there's got to be something in your mind that you think maybe have been a possibility or a probability?
I personally believe that a struggle took place in the cockpit. So that tells me that both pilots were not involved. Possibly one, but not both. And if they did have a passenger come up while the crew was receiving their dinner, or one of them going to the bathroom, that would give them an opportunity to enter into the cockpit. So
but it's harder to get in there now.
It's very hard because it's an armored door, so you can't just kick it in. You can't use a key to get into it.
Yes, but if one pilot was going into the restroom, when he came out to open that door, somebody could have grabbed him.
Well, they block it. And
they do try to block it, but you can't use a key anymore. Usually a flight attendant will go up into the cockpit while one of the pilots is on a break or going to the bathroom. And to get back in, the flight attendant will look through the peephole to make sure it's the right person coming back in.
Right.
But David, why do you think, what indicates that there was a struggle?
I think there's a struggle because the airplane went up in a climb. So somebody had to take off the autopilot. It climbed up, according to the radar, up to 45,000 feet, which I don't believe it got that high, because that's above the ceiling, service ceiling of the airplane. And at the weight that the airplane was at when they took off, they would not have the thrust to be able to get up even to 41 or 42,000 feet.
And then it dropped down.
It dropped down because if it did get up somewhere in the 40s, it stalled. Or it was approaching a stall, and no, the oxygen mask would not deploy.
The oxygen mask would not come up if it went that high?
No, because you can get up. The differential would allow you to get the cabin up to 8,000 feet. And then it could start going into the emergency part of the pressurization system, so you're not going to just depressurize. It's just that the cabin will try to maintain 8,000 feet is what happens.
But it dropped to 23?
Well, what happens, if the airplane is approaching a stall, the stick pusher or the yoke gets slammed forward.
Oh.
And that's a very violent maneuver to nose the airplane over.
For all the passengers.
For the passengers. So that would tell them that something happened. So my belief is that a struggle was taking place while all this was going on. The airplane climbed, stalled, pusher kicked in, and then it started down. Now, this is a fly-by-wire airplane, so it's not like the 7.6, where, the Egyptian airplane, where the co-pilot literally drove it right into the ocean. This airplane, if nobody's up there manipulating the controls, the airplane will try to maintain the airspeed that's in the speed window. So it will level off all by itself with a fly-by-wire airplane.
Could nobody on that plane have signaled through a cell phone or anything
or Wi-Fi?
That they were in trouble?
You're too high for the cell phones to work. But you also have the satellite phones. That's what you communicate with when you use the telephone that's in the seat back. But there's a switch up in the cockpit, so if it's a highly educated pilot that knows, obviously somebody turned off the transponder, somebody turned off the ACARS, he could just reach up there and turn off the switch that powers up the passenger sat phones.
So whoever was involved in this, they knew that that pilot eventually was going to say goodnight, because everybody has been focusing on that too. He said goodnight and then suddenly everything switched off. Your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is just that that's standard, not standard, it's really a non-standard phraseology, but a lot of times when you're leaving one FIR flight information region. They were going from Malaysia to the Vietnamese FIR. So they were at the switchover point, and they just say bye. They were probably still in radar contact with the Malaysians, but probably not with the Vietnamese, because I think they were too far south.
And it was 2 o'clock in the morning, so we'd say goodnight.
Yeah, and he said goodnight. That was just being nice.
Are you surprised that, I mean, here it went through different areas, different countries, it could have been in their airspace, correct? And nobody noticed that it was missing, that it had gone a different way, under radar, whatever. Are you surprised by all that? And does that prove there's a weakness, obviously, in the system?
No, I believe that the Malaysian military probably did get the, there was an earlier report that it did turn back to the west, and it hit 3 waypoints. So that meant somebody programmed in the FMS, because the FMS, which is a flight management system, had the airplane programmed to go to Beijing. So to make it go somewhere else, you got to tell it to go somewhere else. And that's what I think happened. So somebody, I think they knew where they wanted to go and put in a few waypoints. And the last point that I heard about a week ago, that the airplane went from the 45 down to 23 and then back up to 29.5. Now, why would they want to be at 29.5? They want to be at a strange altitude, in other words, between flight levels, so they don't hit somebody.
Right.
You got your transponder turned off, so there's...
They can't see it.
Yeah, they can't see it. And they probably turned the lights off for the airplane, so...
My
if you want to be totally, you're just flying as a dark object up there, so... So I think that that's what happened.
Yeah.
There are a lot of islands over the Indian Ocean. There's something like 66 and runways, that were built during the war or whatever. And they say that these places are so covered up. I was hearing this on one report. I think it was on Fox.
What are your thoughts on that? Maybe an island or something like that?
Well, in the island, the Andaman Islands, they're owned by the Indians. And in the middle of it, one of the islands, one of the larger islands, there's a naval air station. It's a joint use airfield that would have a runway long enough to take a 777.
Is it operable?
Oh, yes. I flew over it when I was flying for jet.
But they would know. And I'm talking about some deserted. I mean, this is obviously something that if it is sabotage, they have thought about this for years. They have gotten all their ducks in a row. They've practiced this scenario. So all I can think about are, where are all those people? What's happened to all those people?
Well, if you want to get rid of the people, that's a cruel way to say it, but you can just depressurize the airplane.
I know, that's what bothers me so much.
And so you only have 12 minutes of oxygen for the passengers, and it's not under pressure. So even with the oxygen flowing, if they stayed at a high altitude of 35,000 feet, let's say, even though they have 12 minutes of oxygen, it's not pressure breathing. And at 35,000 feet in an unpressurized airplane, you would have to breathe under pressure in order for you to get oxygen into your lungs.
Yeah.
But the cockpit, their oxygen system is under pressure.
Right.
So that's a different...
And it's a different oxygen system for the cockpit.
So that's just...
Every scenario seems sad to me.
It does to me, too.
You've enlightened us on a lot, then.
Yeah.
Yes, and thank you so much.
Discussion.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I think that if it did go north, that there was a lot of countries that could have seen it on their military radar system.
And they're just not turning it in?
That depends on how good their integrated air defense system is.
Yeah.
And if it went south, once it got past Indonesia, and someone said it went down to 5,000 feet. Radar is just like radio. It has a radar horizon, that once you get below the radar horizon, you can't see it. So that might have been one of the reasons why.
You think we'll ever know?
If it went into the deep Indian Ocean and they don't get a submarine down there to, do some sort of grid pattern, because
But if that plane hit the water, it would open up and things would float up.
Well, I agree with you on that.
But it's also been a week. I mean, the more time that goes on, the more that stuff can sink.
Thank you for being with us.
I think they're going to eventually find something, but it may be a long time.
Please come back.
Yeah, we'd like to have you back.
Thank you.
And we hope we have a happy ending to this story. That would really be a miracle. Up next on the Texas Daily, a new development in the South by Southwest drunk driving crash. That was a horrible thing. We'll have more about it coming up next.